Hey everybody, in this episode we'll be covering Thresh Support. I also wanted to thank you guys all for all the feedback you gave me from the first video. I did raise the mic volume, hopefully you guys can tell. And as you can see, we still have the terrible intro, but it should give the information required until I find a better alternative. Alright, on to the clips. In this first clip, we're going to look how Thresh used his ranged autos in the early laning phase. Like we touched on last episode, every lane sort of breaks down into a farming or an aggressive lane. The fact that this is Vayne versus Karma means you guys are definitely on the farming side. So it's really smart for Thresh not to be completely focused on trying to get insequential amounts of harass down on Corki, because when level 2 hits, Thresh and Vayne are not going to be the ones who are going to be all-inning. It's really good for Thresh right now to help Vayne equalize this wave and not let it get too out of control, and make sure Vayne doesn't hit level 2 so far behind Corki. It's a really heads-up play not to be overly focused on harass, because a lot of supports do that early. Other thing I really like about what this Thresh was doing is the fact he kept himself in front of Vayne for the majority of this early clip. There were times where he did fall behind her, but it's important to keep yourself in front of your AD carry if they're a farming AD carry, so you take more of the harass than they do, and therefore keep their farm safer and them topped off with health. It seems like Thresh, though, forgets that right here and engages on Karma. It would have been a lot safer not to follow that Q in and instead just sort of pull Karma back and try to get out of the range. Instead, you bait Vayne into a really bad engagement and you end up taking a lot of damage and harass. Sometimes with heroes like Thresh and Blitz, it's hard not to grab somebody if they're right in front of you. It feels like such a game-changing skill. But in that scenario, in a lot of scenarios, hitting that hook actually is detrimental to you and your lane mate because it puts you into a trade that you can't win. Also right here, it's really important that you back. It's better to miss one wave of creeps than to zone yourself for the next 5 minutes because you're at lower health than your opponents. In this clip, we're going to watch a great gank opportunity yield 0 summoner spells and 0 kills because of misplays on the purple team. When you're behind in bot lane and you know both of your opponents haven't burned any summoner spells, when you're getting a gank, it's really important to go onto the target that has the least chance of escaping. As a jungler, I look at who the support is pinging / going on to know who to engage upon, because they know the summoner spells that are down and so forth. Right here, it's more important to go on Karma and get a kill for Vayne than it is for you to deny CS to the Corki who's already ahead. You need that kill for Vayne to get back into the game. So right here, you should have 100% engaged on the Karma. She doesn't have Valkyrie, she's farther out of position, she's close to the wall for Vayne to pin when she finally gets in range. All in all, it would have been really easy. The other issue here is you stack CC with Pantheon and burn your Flay too early. You don't wait for Corki to start his Valkyrie, and he ends up just getting out of this gank 100% scot-free. In a farm lane that's behind, it's better to take the sure thing than to go for that big play that will equalize lane. It's baby steps back into this game. In this clip, I'd like to re-emphasize a point I made earlier. When I said you should have backed after that first failed engagement, I really did mean it. It's been 8 minutes since then. And I've watched you and Vayne get zoned for more creeps than you would have missed from backing there. You would have missed one wave of creeps that didn't have a cannon minion in it at all. That's 6 minions. I saw you and Vayne get zoned from at least 15 minions worth of experience, let alone farm. It's been 8 minutes and Corki hasn't even popped his red potion. That's how little pressure you and Vayne were able to put on him in lane. You pretty much turned that lane into an absolute free farm for him and made it so jungle pressure never really had to come. You'd be surprised, but backing at the right time is actually something I've worked on with a lot of platinum and even diamond players I've coached over the years. It really does make that big a difference. Backing at the right time can lead to blue buffs that can be uncontested, dragons that can be uncontested. A lot of things where backing at the right time gives you that item and health power spike that really puts you over the edge compared to the other team, let alone the effect it has in laning phase. So a couple clips ago we watched a gank that went horribly wrong. Well, in this clip we're going to see a gank that goes pretty good. Although you still make some of the same mistakes. You still go for Corki when Karma is the much easier kill here, and you're still behind in lane, when really all you need to do is get Vayne fed. So, Karma comes up and asks for it again. She's always in the front here, and yet everybody ignores her. It's the Corki show, and he easily Valkyries out. Luckily, all of you realize the Karma is standing right behind you, and you easily clean her up. But it would have been so much easier if you just started on Karma in the first place. Like if a jungler came or if anything happened, it would have been so much safer just to get Karma. And then you make the big plays here. Good on you. Nice flash hook. Nice pull. Nice get into tower range. Tank the tower a little bit and let Vayne get the last hit here. All in all, great job. I love when people make the flash plays in solo queue. There's really nothing on the line other than you getting better. And to get better, you have to push yourself. So, all in all, a great play, but I think it would have been easier if you just went for Karma from in the first place. So, going forward, when a gank happens, you should go for the highest probability kill and move on from there. In this clip, we're finally going to see Thresh punish the Karma who's been out of position most of this game. He starts by engaging on Corki, but then sees the open Karma and makes the right play and switches targets. It ends up netting his Vayne a 100% free kill, in which their opponents burn a ton of summoners. At the end, Vayne and Corki trade flashes for better or worse, but up until that point, you had just gotten your AD carry a kill almost for free. Good job, good heads-up play. In this clip, you see Lee Sin and Teemo invading your red buff. And instead of pinging and then turning to run, you force the engagement on them and Q into Lee Sin. Your teammates weren't really that close, and I feel like if their team would have reacted quicker and focused you down instead of going for that red buff, they could have 100% killed you for free before your team ever would have arrived. You also didn't have vision going into that fight, so you really had no idea how many people were there. You have to be very careful when making engages like that as support. In this next clip, I just sort of want you to look at the mini-map. It's something I've noticed throughout a lot of the game. You and your team have been fighting in both topside jungle and bottomside jungle for the last 3 skirmishes. And yet, I don't see any wards on the map from your team. And you have a Sightstone. There literally isn't a single ward on the map in either side of the jungle that's for your team. And you've been all over both sides of those jungles. The only wards I've really seen you place outside of lane in this game have been on Dragon and Baron. When you're wandering around through the jungle, you should be trying to ward off choke points and trying to give your team vision so they have an idea of when and where to fight. Because vision is power, vision is knowledge. And I think you talk about the issue with closing out this game, and I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of ward control in your own and your opponent's side jungle. It really limits the amount of plays your team can make when you compare it to the vision the other team has. In this clip, we're going to watch one of the first team fights of the game. And in this team fight, Thresh makes a mistake I see a lot of lower ELO supports make that are playing tankier type supports. They feel tanky, and therefore they feel like a front line, without really thinking about their team comp. See, Thresh has both Vayne and top Ezreal on his team, along with Orianna. And this team is about to be a very split team fight, and therefore he's not doing the ball delivery. In this case, his main job is to protect his 3 carries. If his 3 carries can zone and live long enough, they will win the fight, because they have more damage than the other team. So instead of engaging, he needs to make sure Vayne and Orianna and Ezreal live as long as possible. Right here, they get surrounded. And the first thing Thresh does is he goes on Corki, when in fact the first thing he should have been doing is making sure Orianna is able to live long enough in this fight to get off a good ult. Instead, he gets on Corki, thinking he's CCing their damage, but instead all he does is get popped before he can really put any skills into the team fight. Thresh has a lot of CC, but he was killed too fast to use any of it. He didn't get his ult off, he really didn't get much of anything off. So it's really important to understand what your role in the team fight is, and where you're supposed to position. That was a huge misplay by Thresh. Luckily, the other team doesn't focus well, and they don't come into the team fight correctly. So Thresh's team ends up picking this one up in the end. But it's something to think about when you're playing support, where you should be in the team fight. Most of the time, it is supporting your AD carry. In this clip, we're going to watch a game-ending push go completely wrong. At this point, they've caught out their opponent's Lee Sin, and they're pushing into the base as 5. They already have the inhibitor down, and super minions are funneling into the base. They should have been much quicker at focusing one tower over the other. And right here, they needed not to split up. They're against a poke-heavy team, and they need to have a concise objective. Half the people are clearing the minions in mid lane, and the other half are clearing the inhibitor bottom. As a team, you need to stay together so that you can make a quick engage on the other enemy team and end the game. Right here, the thing they forget to realize, or maybe they did and just didn't respect it, is the fact Lee Sin's going to be up really soon. Lee Sin ends up picking off Ezreal and forcing your team into a bad fight that you never should have been in the first place. You end up fighting without one of your AD carries and losing the fight. What went from a sure thing with 2 inhibitors down and a base turret down turns into an open game because of Ezreal getting caught. At some point, you need to leave the person who's not responding to pings behind and retreat as a team, instead of running down to get caught along with him. One player for 2 inhibitors and a base turret is actually sort of worth it. Not to say you should always leave your teammates to die when you think they're doing something stupid, but at a certain point it's time to cut your losses in a solo queue game. The rest of this game is just zoomed in on your dead body while the other team takes your base and wins the game. It's really unfortunate the game ended this way, but there's a lot of things you can work on. You should really work on knowing the lane. I would like to have you submit another replay where you're not laning with something like Vayne as a support, so I can see you play in a lane that's much more even early to see how you work as an aggressive support. The other thing that I think you should really work on is ganks. As obviously I pointed out in this video, you need to know who to focus in fights, and you need to know what your job in fights is too, going into team fights. Whether or not you should be the engagement, or should you peel for your AD carry. Another big thing that is really, really important is your warding. You as a support had almost no vision control this game, other than like really obvious things like Dragon and Baron timers. Your team was ahead during the mid game, yet you had almost no ward coverage in their jungle, and none in your own, yet a lot of the skirmishes were happening in your own jungle. You talked about the fact that you felt like your team was ahead, yet never really could close out the game, and a lot of it stems from the fact if you never really knew where your opponents were, you ended up getting split pushed a lot by Teemo, and you end up having a lot of skirmishes, not team fights, in which Vayne and Ezreal, your double AD carry team, could really shine. And a lot of that rests on the fact that you didn't have vision going into these fights, so you didn't know what to expect from them, so your team couldn't really engage. So it's really important to get those early wards down. The last thing I have for you is learn when to back. I know this game is a lot harder because you were never able to push up to their tower and get the easy free back, but it doesn't make it any less important. If anything, it makes it more important to learn when to back in this game, because backing is power. Having those items has the opportunity of getting you back in the game. It allows Vayne to get those items that allow her to outscale Corki faster, and allows you to get the wards so that you guys can play safer and aggressively. And it keeps you from being chunked in zone for 8 minutes. But enough with the negative, right? I mean, you did pretty well. There were a lot of things you did really well. I thought it was really good for the first minute or so how you played the lane in a poke versus, Vayne lane. Hitting the minions instead of looking for harass was really smart. I don't know if it was a fluke or not, but it was still a heads-up play from you. There were also a lot of really cool plays you made during the game. Some really cool flash hooks as we saw in that one clip, and a bunch of other plays that I didn't include because there wasn't much to comment on. But you made a lot of good plays, and you shouldn't feel completely down about this game. For the most part, good job, man. And hopefully down the line you'll send me a replay that has you playing in a lane where you can be more aggressive so we can comment about that. Otherwise, I'd love to hear any feedback or criticism you guys have. The only thing I really got last time is that the sound needed to be louder for negative criticism. Everything else I got was pretty much positive, and I'm sure that can't be the case. I'm sure there's things I definitely can improve on, and I'd love to hear about it. Hopefully the sound issue's fixed. It sounds really loud in Sony Vegas, so if it's not fixed, I don't know really what to do. I guess make it even louder next time. I'd also love to have even more replays. I'm running a little short on certain roles of replays. I almost got no jungling replays and no top replays. So tomorrow I'll probably be doing a mid one unless I get a jungle one tonight. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.